pro, so we roll. Using procurement, program and control. As a small biz pro, so we grow. Using procurement, program and control. I'm a businessman, yes, I'm an entrepreneur. Oh yeah, I'm a businessman, yes, I'm an entrepreneur. Oh yeah, I'm a businessman, yes, I'm an entrepreneur.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is a Business Zone with Gilbert Buchanan, your small business paramedic, and
Crystal. Well,
Crystal. I think we're all thrown around right now because there's so many things going on out there. So let's have you start with your number of days that's left, Crystal. How many
okay,
days you
let's
got left?
my days that we got going on. Let me share the screen and let me get up to my number of days. Let me see where's my days. There you go, my days. Share the screen. We are 31 days, 6 hours, 58 minutes, and 43 seconds away from the election. And Gilbert, today, that's what we're going to be talking about is the election and what we need to do in order to be ready. Um, so in the last 24 hours, some crazy stuff went down.
Uh-huh.
And I know everyone has mixed emotions about that craziness. So,
Uh-huh.
but the president and his entire family, well,
Yeah.
just he and his wife have been tested positive for COVID.
Right.
My sister, when we heard it last night, my sister like started texting me right away,
Right.
and then all of a sudden, uh, they were saying he had been tested, but they were waiting for the results to come back. And so then they were like, okay, well, we don't know what's going to happen. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. So we're waiting on pins and needles. And then it happened. It said he was. And she started just grinning from ear to ear. I was like, okay, wait, calm down, calm down. So we stayed up till like 1 or 2 o'clock this morning. 1 o'clock, just listening and trying to piece it together. And so this morning woke up and he wasn't having symptoms yesterday, but he was having symptoms this morning. And I just think I read that he has a high fever,
Mm-hmm.
and that they're treating him with zinc and water or some other things that they're treating him with. He's been working, but they're heading him to Walter Reed. And I guess
Uh-huh.
the medication they're using for him is the medication that they would use if you were for the fourth stage. But again,
Mm-hmm.
they would of course go to all limits for him
Right.
because he is the president of the United States. So interesting. You never know because he is capable of doing anything to
Right.
do what he needs to do.
Right.
But I don't know. I'm thinking. I listened to some of the press corps that was on the plane, and they were nervous. And one guy looked terrified that he may have been exposed because on Saturday when they were at that event for the Supreme Court justice, they were all sitting next to each other. They were all hugging and kissing each other. That one senator, Lee, was it from Utah? Oh,
Yeah.
he was hugging and slobbering over everybody.
Oh Lord. See, this is what we've been talking about on this show every day, Crystal. That we need to take precaution. We need to think for ourselves. We need to look at logics. We need to look at the facts. We need to look at the data. Listen to the medical experts. And a lot of people are not doing that. And they're listening to, some lunatic telling us that we don't need to wear masks, we can go back out in the community and not social distance. And we all know that's a farce. We know that we're supposed to do the right thing, even if we don't believe that something is wrong and something is going to happen. Take the precaution. Take the necessary precaution. No one did, and see, now it's attacking the head of the snake.
Yeah, but you can't. You play around. What did they say? You play
With
around
fire,
with
with fire.
with fire, you're gonna
Yeah,
get burnt. That's what my
yeah,
mom used to tell me all the time. Keep
yeah,
playing. Keep
yeah.
keep playing around with fire and see what happens to you. I mean, people, this is serious. I mean, there are people that have lost loved ones. Now they could have been, they may have died from something else, but nevertheless, they still have been exposed. And at a certain age, I'm younger. I do a lot of stuff to make sure that my body stays healthy. But if I was in a precarious situation where I had some health scare, or recovering from cancer, or something where my body wasn't strong to fight off stuff, then
Mm-hmm.
I probably would never leave the house. But
Right.
when I leave the house, I wear a mask, I wash my hands, I don't do crowds, period, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I wouldn't be flaunting it. I mean, come on,
Right.
you wouldn't be flaunting. And here's the thing, Gilbert. So on the crazy debate the other day,
Yeah.
there he was teasing a Biden
For wearing a mask.
for wearing a mask.
See?
And now look at you. You're talking about we're the biggest mass. We could be 200 feet away from each other,
Yeah.
but Biden was not throwing caution to the wind. So
Right.
you're a leader. We've
Exactly.
talked about this. As a leader, you have to lead the flock so that
Right.
they can protect the rest of the flock. And you're
Right.
just doing whatever you want to do,
Right.
I don't know, to prove a point.
Right. And you don't want to be the leader just for the red states. You want to be a leader of the red states and the blue states and the entire United States of America. That's how it should be. And I don't know if this person had gotten the memo when they, when they were holding leadership schools, but
Leadership school.
yeah, but it seemed as if he thought that, once you get a little group, then that's the group you're going to lead instead of leading the whole entity. So,
Yes.
America is learning a lot of things right now that, common sense is very important. This virus is going nowhere. This virus is getting stronger. So far, it's taken over 207,000 lives, which, like I said last week on the show, it's more than many cities, the population of many cities when we look at them. If you look at the list of the cities that we identified the last time, the city of Inglewood has what, 110,000? The virus has
Yes.
taken 207,000. So the amount of people who are dead could cover the city of Inglewood, it could cover Pasadena, Alhambra, Glendale, all of those cities, individually. So we got to be smart. We got to be smart. Plus, we don't have health care, Crystal. We don't have health care, and that's something we're struggling with. Now, if people had health care, they could go out there and flaunt themselves and say, okay, we have health care. Let's try to, see if it can help us. But most of us do not have health care.
And I think they haven't talked about this much, Gilbert, and that's a good point right there. Is that some individuals that have gone to the hospital and they've been there for a while, they're on ventilators, they've racked up millions and millions and
Yes,
millions of dollars in
yes,
debt in hospital bill. The hospital, your health, if you do have health insurance, it's not going to pay. But if you got a $1.6 million bill, some of that's
exactly,
going to come back to you, right?
exactly.
Because the insurances are not 100%.
Right.
And so I'm just concerned. And then look at us in the economy. I think, it's a big risk. It's we haven't even looked at what this other side is. I was coaching someone yesterday and she was really bummed out. And one of the reasons was she lost her job. And now her insurance is she's going on Cobra. And
Which
so
is
now
which is
her,
the worst thing ever.
right. So her Cobra premium is going to be $700. You have no
Exactly.
work,
Yeah.
and it's not like you can go out and find a new job with new
Right.
health insurance because
Right.
we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Right.
And a lot of companies are still working from home remotely, and they're not going to hire. And we're in
Yeah.
October,
Yeah.
speeding into November. No one does
Uh-huh.
any hiring in between November and December. Next
Right.
year,
Right.
they'll hopefully they've figured out where they're going with this. So it's just so many parts and pieces right now that is just this election, and that's what we're going to talk about is the election, but from a local standard, local point, because yes, it's important that we get the lunatic out the White House.
Yeah,
that is very important. But there are a lot of things on the California ballot that's very, very important to those of us that actually live in this state.
right.
And so voting is not just for the president spot, but we have to vote for the local spots that are going on, especially certain propositions and measures that are on. So I don't know about you, Gilbert, but I was reading yesterday. We had Karen Blackwell on, and she was talking about Proposition 16 on the business briefing, and you know that they're overturning the Prop 209, right? And that was 24 years ago.
Yeah,
that's a long time. And I was just thinking, I was right out of school. How did I vote on that? Because I definitely wasn't as informed as I am tonight, as I am today. So
did you vote? Did you vote?
I did vote. I've always voted. Yes.
Okay.
I've never skipped a vote.
Well, the thing about it is, you probably, knowing you, you probably read it, and you probably voted to keep affirmative action, but your vote just wasn't enough. You know, they probably outvoted you. You see what I'm saying? So
Yes.
that's probably what happened, because I'm sure you wouldn't have voted to get rid of affirmative action. I can't see that happening. I can't see that.
Well, I'm glad you have faith in what I did when I was in my 20s. But yeah, but I was just thinking like, wow, that was a long time ago. And actually, every proposition that's on the ballot for us in the state of California is repealing or adding to a vote that we may have voted for in the past. But
Exactly.
I do know that a lot of us vote based upon if you were involved in a church, then they give you this little card and they tell you these are the people you should vote for.
Exactly. And that
you just
shouldn't be.
Right. You just check it off because that's based upon somebody else's opinion. And I do know that I was not very thorough I did no research on judges.
Right. Right.
If I didn't even know who they were, like most of us don't know who they are.
Well, here's an example to that, Crystal. When I last voted, I went into the voting booth, and we were supposed to vote for local sheriff, for the LA sheriff, right? So I started looking at the names. I didn't know any of those dudes. All right. So the one I chose is the one that's in office right now, and that guy is a total mess. He's a total mess.
That's what I mean, right?
that guy has been endorsing cops killing innocent Black and Latino people. So I'm going, what was I thinking? But so my thing is, moving forward, if I didn't vote if I'm gonna vote, I'm gonna make sure I do the research on judges. You got to look at school superintendents. You got to look at all the local people, before you make those decisions, because you're not just voting for president or or someone else. You're voting for a lot of different judges and all of those people, because some people don't even know that judges are elected. A lot of people don't know that.
No, they don't.
Yeah. Judges are elected by you voting for them, and you don't even know you're voting for someone against your own interests. Because if they're judges with a background who don't care for minorities, they don't care for people who live in low economic situations, then they're always going to make decisions against you. So those are things and that's a good point you brought up, Crystal. That's a good point you brought up.
Yeah, because and those of you that are tuning in, our viewers, let us know. You can just put it in the chat, comments, and then we can respond on it. But I do know for a fact, and I'll tell you exactly when that changed for me. When Bush was in office, and for whatever reason, I felt I needed to comb through the whole entire ballot, and I needed to research everyone. Well, it was after, especially before Obama, that I could not let this man who was going on here about weapons of mass destruction
Yeah.
that we did not see or know of was around. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I didn't vote for him, but what about the other stuff that's going on? What
Yeah.
about the other things? So at that point, and then, with black people, we really need to know who the judges are.
Yeah.
I mean, look at us. We put Jackie Lacey in. Why?
Yeah.
Because somebody told us she's black, right?
Yeah,
Sometimes
yeah.
we just vote because of the color of the person's skin.
Right. Right.
But it goes against everything that we believe in. So right now, down to the dog catcher, we need to know what is his moral character.
We want to know if that dog catcher likes to catch black dogs or brown dogs.
we can't even vote. We can't even take a chance on the dog catcher, man.
I love it. I love it. You're right though, Crystal. Because when I voted for the sheriff, right?
Uh-huh.
There are two options on there. You got a Latino and you got a non-Latino, right? So I said,
Right.
okay, I'm gonna vote for the Latino because I want to give the Latino a chance. So I voted
Right.
for him, and this dude is who we got. This one who's the current sheriff. This guy is awful, man. He's killing brown and black people, and then he's defending his sheriff's department. They just killed this Latino dude over there. I think it's in Linwood, and he is supporting that. I'm going, how can you do this? You know what I mean?
Right.
Killing your own people. Oh man, and he think it's a sport. So we got to get people like those out of office, man.
And they can't be in office.
So
And-
that's
and
why we
actually-
got to read up on them. We got to read up on their background, their history, and what they're about.
Right. And they're over I was doing my research, and they're over, let me see.
There are
If you
12
go to
12 propositions on the ballot today.
12 propositions.
Yes. So
And-
let's go over them from the beginning. Let's
Yes.
look at the first. The first one is Proposition 14.
Yeah, let me pull it up. Hold on
Yeah.
1 second. And not just that, Gilbert, also the fact that I think there's 20 propositions on the ballot that relate to police
Right.
and police enforcement.
Right.
And for us, man, we can't be taking no kind of chances
No.
in that space. We
Not
need
at
to
all.
really. So that's the purpose of this show today, everyone. We need you to research your ballot. You need to vote for what works for you and your family. And we got to always take in consideration when it comes to anything to do with the police officers and law enforcement. We're on the ballot. We're always at the table. We're always on the menu of the table, at the table.
Right,
That's all
right.
I know. So there are actually over 20 local police related ballot measures on the
Right.
November ballot.
Right.
So we're going to first start with the propositions, and then next week we'll go into the measures. But
Right.
we're going to make sure that nobody gets to say, what the heck was I thinking?
Exactly. Because I said that, when I did my last vote, I'm really regretting that vote right now, voting for the sheriff. That's no good. That's
Yeah.
no good.
Yeah, that's scary. I mean, when
Oh,
you
it's
start to
scary,
think about
man.
it, and there are people right now who are saying, even the people that are part of the that voted for Trump, they realize that they made a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they got to live with that. I mean, when we look at the fact that here we are,
Yeah.
In a pandemic that's destroying our people and destroying our economy and
Mhm.
things like that. This stuff is serious.
Yeah. Definitely.
So we're going to talk
Definitely.
about the first
Yeah. So the first ballot The first proposition that they have on the ballot, Proposition 14. This is one where they're trying to issue $5.5 billion in bonds for state stem cell research institute. Now, my thing is, if you're voting for that, you want to read up and see what is the stem cell research going to be for and for whom. How are they going to conduct it? How is it going to work? Are they going to just catch black people and Latino people on the street side and take them against their will and extract stem cell from them and do this? We need to know those things before we vote
Right.
on it. You see what I mean?
And
So,
you need to know, I think one of the things that they are saying about the stem cell one is that, let me get to the actual ballots, was that we voted on this once before.
yeah,
So a lot of, as I saw from my research, a lot of these ballots were on the table in previous years. So this one came back because they did the stem cell research. We voted on it. We brought it. It was passed, and they spent already. They spent $3 billion,
yeah.
and so now the question is, they want to extend that and issue more bonds toward that. But I don't know if I know. What was the progress? What did they find?
That's the thing. We don't know. And here's the deal. And it's very important when people are voting on these propositions. This is my analysis of proposition, Crystal. My analysis. Now, you don't, the folks listening to us, you don't have to take my word for it, but this is just my analysis. Whenever there's a proposition, that means it's going to cost us money. Okay? We're voting to tax ourselves. So just keep that in mind. My question is, do you want to pay more money? And if you want to pay, is it worth whatever they're trying to do? So let's take a look at this bonding, right? This is a bond proposition, right? Proposition 14 is a bond proposition. That means you got to vote. The money's going to have to come from somewhere. So you're either going to vote to tax yourself, so your property tax is going to increase somewhat, or your gas tax is going to increase, or some kind of tax is going to have to generate in order to, because this is a bond. Okay.
Right.
So that's one thing that they need to take a look at. The second one, Crystal, is Proposition 15. And Proposition 15, it requires commercial and industrial properties to be taxed based on market value and dictates the revenue. Okay.
Yes.
So
Yes.
those are things that we can try to figure out. This is a tax. This is a tax proposition. The taxes proposition. So some tax is going to have to be paid somewhere by us.
Right, exactly. So you want to, and again, this is just for informational purposes. I usually use several resource items. So LA Times, they usually break it down. And then what I do is I actually spend about 3 weeks going through all my propositions and my judges. I'm looking for pros and cons. I'm looking for articles.
Yeah.
I'm going to Ballotopedia. I'm looking for, like you said, how much money is going to cost? What is going to be the long term? Because you remember, see, a lot of times we vote on things that don't happen like the next year, right?
Yeah.
So, and one of those that I remember happening was on the plastic bag. Remember, on the grocery store plastic bags.
Yes.
So when it actually happened, people were going, I didn't vote for that. Yeah, you did. You probably voted for that about 5 years ago.
5 years ago, exactly. Paper or plastic.
and what I find is kind of interesting with that one. Let's take that one for instance. Now, I remember that back in the 90s, we voted on that.
Yes.
We were going through this whole recycling thing in the 90s. And I remember, because I had a network thing myself. Hey, Alfred, how you doing? Alfred said, how you folks doing? We're good.
Hey, Alfred.
And so I remember that in the 90s, and we were, everybody was about, about the earth. Let's make sure that the earth is being taken care of. So fast forward, somewhere in there, we went back to paper.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what I mean. We went back to plastic. We went
Yeah.
over to paper,
Yeah.
and then we went back to plastic.
Uh-huh.
And then here we 10 years, 20 years later, we
Yeah.
went back to plastic,
Uh-huh.
getting rid of plastic because it's destroying the earth.
Yeah.
Okay, we got that. But how many, when you go into right after COVID hit, they were like, I was like, okay, they would ask you for a bag, which one do you want? And they would say, and now at this point, it doesn't matter whether you're paying for paper or plastic. You
Right.
pay for both.
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So who's making the money, the environment or the supermarket that you're in?
That's my point. So that's why as informed citizens, we need to read up on these ballots, these propositions. We need to know what's going on. Now, the next one, Crystal, is Proposition 16. This is a big one. Big, 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 big one. Okay? Because this is one you were talking about that in 1996, the Proposition 209 came into existence and it repealed the affirmative action um, provisions that were there to help minorities, blacks, and women to be equal, to get equal participation. So, what this is, Proposition 16 is now going to repeal Proposition 209 that was established in 1996, which says that the state cannot discriminate or grant preferential treatment based on race, sex, color, ethnicity, national origin, public employment, education, or contracted. What they didn't say is that they can't grant contracts to the bigger companies or the richer companies, and that's what they've been doing. So those are the ones who are trying to fight the Proposition 16. They're trying to say, hey, let's get rid of affirmative action. Let's get rid of preferential treatment to economically dispossessed people. So you need to read that as a consumer and as a citizen to see, okay, how does this hinder you from growing your business? How does this hinder you from growing, sending your kids to school? Because now they're telling you that you can't get your kid in a certain school based on the fact that you're economically dispossessed. But it's got to be because you're well to do, you've got the money, you can afford it, and all of those types of things. So that's what it's all about, Crystal. Proposition 16.
Exactly. And so with that one, Gilbert, as I was doing research yesterday on the business briefing, we had Karen Blackwell, who was also on our show a couple of weeks ago, and she was talking about proposition. So she has an event going on October 7th, Wednesday at 10 a.m. It's a virtual event. The link is actually in our comments right now. And they're going to be having an open, important conversation on this proposition, because one of the things I had read, Gilbert, was by eliminating the granting, preferential treatment, as they called it, to based upon race and sex, race and gender, there is probably about $16 trillion of lost revenue to women and black owned or minority owned businesses that could apply for minority contracts and did not get them. Because there's no one forcing them to do that, right?
Right.
And I hear this from you, and I've heard this from many places. They tend to award the contracts to the same people and over again, right?
The same usual suspects. And these are usually people who are not qualified to do it, but because they're friends with the contract provider, they bring them in. And most of the times they bring them in, Crystal, they're from out of state. They're not even from California. They're not even from Los Angeles. They're from out of state. So
wow.
we can't have that anymore. It can't have that anymore.
And that's why that's important. So so Karen's event or the group that she's working in, and this is her group is a women, and she's also has a call of action to all women business owners and women that are running organizations, community-based organizations. We have to stand up for ourselves.
Yeah.
Because whether it's voted in or not voted in, it's still, we have to fight for making sure that there is equity for everybody, gender
Right.
and race. And we already know that there's a biasness when it comes to race, and especially if they look like us, little
And
brown babies like us.
and Crystal, that's a great point you brought up. Equity, equity. Because the
Right,
thing is, we cannot ensure equity the way things are right now because the system is designed, it's skewed against us. It's skewed against minority, black and brown and minority people, and it's skewed against women. Okay. So there's no equity there currently existing. So Proposition 16 is trying to equal the playing field and make sure there's some level of equity. That means if you're getting, say, if you're getting six or seven uh, people who are non-minority or not women, then you should bring in about two or three of them. To us, even though the numbers are less, it's still somewhat kind of balancing the scale a little bit because providing some level of equity. So that's what that's about.
right. So we want is equity, right? And we're in a
Equity.
position right now in this world that the balance is like the scales are really tipped high.
Exactly.
and, and we don't get out of this, and it's not in our favor. So we don't get out of this economic space that we're in until we balance those scales and everybody is operating from the same place. Now, that may be a utopia for us. I
Yeah.
mean, thinking that that's happening, but if we don't fight for it, it's not going to happen. And
Right.
so that's just what we're saying. There's also another event coming from the Greater Los Angeles Chamber of African American Chamber of Commerce, and they're doing a yes on Proposition 16.
Yeah.
It's on Thursday, October 8th, and I will put the link and the flyer on the Business Zone's website. So please check it out. But we need to all be involved,
Yeah.
and this is not a them or they. This is about a us.
Right.
And we need to protect us, and we need to make sure that we're fighting for that equity.
So, Crystal, before we move on to the next proposition, which is Proposition 17, I just want to add a little bit to what you just said. So, we're just talking about Proposition 16, which is to balance the scale, provide some equity. Let me explain to folks listening right now what this is about. There are contracts out there, government contracts, that state that, like with the state of California, saying 25% of those contracts should go towards small businesses or disabled businesses. Okay, that's part of what they're trying to get rid of by saying if you voted no on Proposition 16, that means you won't be able to be included or participate in that 25% set aside. There are contracts right now with the city of Los Angeles, the county of Los Angeles, that said 7 to 10% is going to be set aside for woman-owned, minority, Latinos, and other small businesses. Those are things you're voting to preserve. So I just want people to understand that what you're voting for is access to some of these contracts, access to some of these opportunities. Currently in the federal government, Crystal, the federal procurement, there is $500 billion in contracting opportunities, set aside money for us, but we don't even know about and we're not even bidding on. So I just want to
Right.
throw that out there.
And Gilbert, this is your space, so you truly understand this.
Oh
You've been
yeah.
working in this space for how many years?
Oh,
And
25 years, man.
yeah, so
25
you've
years.
seen what has happened in this space. You see where the contracts go. You are bidding for contracts, and you also know what works and what is not working.
Yes, yes. I've seen people on YouTube bragging about getting contract award from federal government, and these people are not even qualified. They're not even qualified to get these contracts, but they're getting it. And I'm going, wait a second, what about us? What about
Right.
us who are qualified and can do the work? So we got to apply ourselves, folks. We've got to apply ourselves.
Right. And Gilbert does workshops and all the time in this space with GLAC. You have one going on right now, or
Yes, yes. I got a program. It's called BEP program with GLAC right now, the Greater Los Angeles African American Chamber. And what we're doing, we're teaching about 13 small businesses how to become contract ready, business ready, so they can go after their share of contracting opportunities. So if you guys are interested, reach out to Angela Gibson over at GLAC and talk to her. I'm also teaching another program, Crystal, with the LA Latino Chamber of Commerce, and it's a program called Avanzar, and we have about 18 small businesses in that program. That again, I'm teaching business readiness, contract readiness, and bank loan readiness. So it's been an amazing program that really, really helps. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
very, very important. Again, we're just doing what we do in order to make sure that there's a better place for our people and especially for our children, that they have a better world. And there are opportunities out there
yeah,
that we just don't, we just don't know about. And so
right,
this is how you find out about that. And getting educated and that knowledge is power. The
right,
more you know about the opportunities and how you can actually position,
right,
because the certificate contracts can really change because you're no longer doing transactional business. You talk about
right.
this all the time, Gilbert, right?
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
Contracts can help you prepare for long-term, short-term, and long-term goals when
Right.
it pertains to your revenue.
Exactly. So instead of you trying to do some transactional business tomorrow or next week, hoping that someone is going to come in and purchase your product or service, not know if they're coming in. If you get a contract, then you can plan much better because now you got a 1 year or a 3 year contract or a 5 year contract. You can plan that way. You can budget. You can hire people, and you've got enough money to pay them, pay your bills, and have some money in the bank. So that's how you want to start looking at business.
Excellent, excellent. So if you guys are looking and wanting more information, reach out right now for his current class at GLAC, the Greater African American Chamber of Commerce, and he always has contract. He always has these classes going on all the time.
Oh
He
yeah.
is the guru at this whole contract thing. You want to know about it? Gilbert is the man.
That's what I'm talking about. Thank you, co-host. So we want to look at the next proposition on the ballot right now, which is Proposition 17. Proposition 17, they consider this a suffrage proposition, suffrage. And for those of you who don't know what suffrage means giving you the right to vote. Okay? Giving you the right to vote and ensuring that that right is not taken from you. So for Proposition 17, it is about restoring the right to vote for people who have been convicted of felonies who are on parole. All right. Now, as you know, and again, I want to go back to this space. As you know, the system is designed and skewed against us minorities, black and brown people. It's designed to pigeonhole us, put us in a hole. And then they've got you got law enforcement to implement some of these unfairness. All right. So
Hmm.
when it comes to school, when it comes to medical, economic opportunity, housing, all of those things we don't get because the system is skewed against us. So as a result, law enforcement comes in, they throw us in jail. Many of us go to prison unfairly, and we don't get a say because no one believes us. So that's what this proposition is about. You've been sent to prison. Now you've done your time. You've been paroled, and the proposition is saying you should be given the right to vote. So that's what that is.
And a lot of times, a lot of the things that we're voting is working against these individuals, and they don't have a say so in it, right?
Exactly.
You like you said, you've paid your restitution to society for the whatever. If you did a crime, because a lot of times you're thrown in there and it's not even you.
Right.
Um, and you didn't even do it. I mean, look how many people they've released from jail over the last I don't know 5 years, 4 or 5 years, and they were imprisoned in an error, or
Yeah.
they weren't the ones that did it, and
Yeah.
so now they've lost their rights, and they're American citizens, and that's
Right.
part of being an American citizen is
Right.
being allowed to vote
Right.
in any election. So that's really important. So I think that's a valuable and a valid a valid
Proposition. Yeah.
proposition, because so many of us have loved ones that have gotten caught up in the system, and that's when we talk about institutional racism, that's one of those components of institutional racism, taking your voice away so that you can't vote for the betterment of yourself and your family.
Right, right, definitely. And proposition number 18 is another one. It's another suffrage proposition, which is just like proposition 17. This one allows 17-year-olds who will be 18 at the time of the next general election to vote in primaries and special elections. So that's another one that's out there. So if you got your kids, you got your nieces, nephews or whomever who are 17 and they're going to be 18 at the time of the next general election, then this proposition, if passed, will allow them to vote in the primaries and the special election.
Exactly. And I think that's very important, but also important parents of these parents and relatives and aunts and uncles of these 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds. We need to start having discussions with our children on the importance of voting and what they're voting for, and
Right.
not just get caught up in the rhetoric. I think the one thing that we've learned with Trump is that we get caught up in rhetoric that has absolutely nothing to do with the issues that pertain to you and your family and your community. So,
Right.
so we need to make sure that we're educating our children on what that looks like, right? So
Right.
that they'll understand why that's important.
And we want them to get involved in the process early, 17, 18, get them involved. Because see, I'm not from here, I'm from another country. And in the Caribbean, they teach you civics in
Mm,
school. They teach you civics when you're 11, 12 years old. So you learn, you understand the Constitution, you understand the voting process, you understand the difference between the House of Representative and here the Senate. You understand the difference between the Senate, you understand how many senators are there, how many House representative members are there, how old you have to be before you can become a senator, how old you have to be before you can become a president. So these are things you learn in school. A lot of people don't even know that right now.
yeah.
So we need to put stuff like that back in school so people learn and understand the process.
And here's another one, Gilbert. I bet you probably know more about the U.S. history and civics because you had to go through the process to get your
Oh
green
yeah.
card, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
so you probably are an expert, more of an expert than we are.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's it. Because they put you through that test, man, when you come here. You gotta know what the presidents are. You gotta understand, okay, when was slavery abolished? You gotta understand between 1865 and 1876, what happened? All of those things. And a lot of people right now, they don't care about that, but it's important.
It's very important because if you don't know what the history is, one quick break here. Alfred says, "What about the 4,000 pound gorilla in the room? There is a God. We need to all wear masks. Donald Trump is a real embarrassment about now."
That is true. That well, see, Alfred, what's going on right now? What it's doing is proving to us that we've been right all along, and the Bible said we're gonna experience false prophets. There are gonna be false prophets out there telling us stuff and lead us in the wrong direction, and that's what that was. That was a false prophet trying to tell us that, hey, you don't need to wear your mask, you don't need to do this, you need to inject yourself with Clorox to prevent this disease. And we know that's ridiculous. So no,
Right.
we're not going to listen to false prophets. So yeah,
No, right.
that's a four
Using your
thousand
own
exactly. That's a four
using
thousand
your
pound gorilla in the room.
That's a $4,000. Right now, we agree with you, Alfred. Yeah, the first of all, the whole group think thing is just beyond me anyway. I mean, my
No,
mother used to say, if your friend John jumped off a bridge, your dumb butt don't go jump off with him. No, you're not.
exactly, exactly, man,
That was a favorite
exactly.
saying of my mother's.
Exactly, exactly. So let's look at Proposition 19, which is the next one. This is in the taxes category. Proposition 19 is about taxes. So this one is changes to tax assessment that transfers and inheritance rules. So this one will change the tax assessment at transfers and inheritance rules. So this is something you need to read up on. If you own property, you want to know what happens when someone dies, or if you're transferring assets, how does that work? How will this affect you as a person? So check it out, Proposition 19.
And it also covers, if it's approved by voters, California homeowners, and this a lot of us fall into this category, who are 55 years or older can purchase a new home and keep their property taxes at the same level or a reduced rate depending on the value of the new home. Because
Right.
a lot of times, you're on a fixed, you may be approaching to that space when you get to be 60, 65, that you're on a fixed income. And so that's very important. And it also, I think, extends to property tax breaks for older homeowners who, for those who lost their homes to a wildfire, a program now limited to other kinds of disasters. So, in the state of California, when it's inevitable every year that there's going to be homes that are lost in fires. Like right now, I think whole towns have just been wiped out, and so that's very important. It's like living on the East Coast and you get a blizzard. The fire is going to come, and right behind the fire is going to come the flood
Right. Right.
when we have rain. So
Exactly.
I think that's so do your research. Definitely, if you're in that age bracket, you own a home, you live in an area that can be compromised, that you could actually use your property, and you don't have at that age 60, I won't say 55, but 60, 65 years old, you're moving toward retirement and you don't want to be displaced from your home and can't afford to replace it or can't afford the taxes.
Exactly. Exactly. And the next one on the list is Proposition 20. This is a law enforcement proposition. This is the only law enforcement proposition on the ballot. So you guys really want to check this one out thoroughly. This one is to make changes to policies relating to criminal sentences, charges, prison release, and DNA collection. And
Mm.
they're trying to add a little clause to this with regard to the George Floyd situation that you guys should really check out. What they're trying to do, they're trying to include about the 100 largest cities to make sure that local police related ballot measures following the killing of and protests of George Floyd be set up in such a way that it's not skewed against the protester, if you're doing peaceful protesting. So those
Right.
are things that I'd like for you guys to read up on as well. So because I don't know if you guys heard about this in Florida, the governor of Florida just passed an executive order which states that if people are protesting, then the people they're protesting against has a right to drive a car and hit them without being arrested or indicted or going to prison. So keep that
Wow.
in mind. Keep that in mind. That's something they're trying to do in all these states right now. They're trying it out in Florida right now. So keep that in mind, folks.
And protest and being having freedom of speech is a constitutional right of
Exactly.
yours, and so someone, when you're protesting an outrage without, no violence, but you're speaking your voice, using your voice for the rights of your rights and everybody else's rights, they're taking away one of your constitutional rights. So you want to
Right.
make sure you research that. We cannot live in a world, it's so funny, since the Trump man has been in the office, it for everything that he's done is to take away your rights as a human being and your
Exactly.
rights as a United States citizen. And he really truly is making this country a third world banana republic, because you don't
Exactly.
have rights in those countries.
Exactly.
And
That is
people
so
come
true.
here to this country because of the freedom that it allows you.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. That is true.
right.
That is
So
true.
anybody taking away your rights by creating laws that sound like for your benefit, but then when you read into the fine print, it doesn't, and you may fall into that trap without any efforts of your own. It's just the way the law is set up, and they're really trying to control people, and they're trying to take away your freedom.
And the one thing I want to say out there to the audience, Crystal, and I'm looking straight in the camera and I'm saying this right now because I want you guys to pay attention to what I'm saying. Okay. Now, not because you see something bad happening to another group and that's not the group you belong to, means that you're going to stay quiet and stay silent. Because if you allow that to happen to another group, someday somehow it's going to happen to you too. It's only a matter of time. Because what they're doing, they're testing their little bogus philosophies to see how well they can get it established. And then once you let it happen, oh, that doesn't concern me, it doesn't affect my group, so it can happen all the time. And if you look back on history and look at all the groups, all of us been affected in some way or another. Okay, you got the Japanese internment camp. You got the Jews are affected. Okay, the blacks, we experienced slavery. The Native Americans, they were affected. They brought diseases to them and took away their land. The Latinos, their lands were taken. Part of California belongs to Mexico. You see what I'm saying?
Right, exactly.
So keep that in mind. If you see something happen to another group, you guys need to step in and voice your opinion about it and protect that group as well, because you would like them to protect you as well.
What do they say? It's just a matter of time. They came for the Indians, they came for the blacks, they came for the Hispanics. Just a matter of time before they get there to you.
Oh yeah, just a matter of time. So you keep that in mind. Don't think that it won't touch you, because it will. So
Exactly.
the next proposition we've got right here is 21. Proposition 21 is about housing. This one is about housing control. Expand local government's power to use rent control. So in other words, we're going through COVID right now, and a lot of people are being thrown out of their housing because they don't have money and all of that. So this proposition is supposed to set up to provide some level of protection to homeowners. I mean, to tenants. So that's something you want to look into. Now, I know some homeowners are going to say, no, I'm not going to support that. Look into it, see, what it's all about, how it protects you, how it protects your property. And as a tenant, look at that as well.
Exactly. And here's the thing. First of all, we have about 60,000 people living on the street. Before COVID, there were so many people being evicted from their homes. New owners were buying up, in areas that they're gentrifying our communities. New owners are coming in and tearing down the facilities, saying they're making it better, but that these people will not be able to come back in. The average rent in LA, if you're a studio, it's about $1,700, but then the average hourly wage is $17 an hour. There's no way you can earn $17 an hour and then be able to pay for a $1,700 apartment, right? So all of your money is going into rent. So there has to be a balance somewhere. And to me, from a business standpoint, you go market, fine, you want to make money, you're going market $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month, but now you have a high turnover of new tenants all the time, because they can't, trying to maintain you might be able to get in there, but then maintaining that every month when your income doesn't justify that. And now what the heck is going to happen when people actually go back to work? Some of these jobs are gone forever.
Exactly.
And so now you have a bigger pool of people seeking work and a smaller pool of jobs that are available for them to even apply for. So we're in a kind of a catch-22 kind of situation. And so, are you good with letting a building sit there empty?
Right, right.
versus having someone tenant in there that's taking care of the rent. So I don't know. That's just from a business standpoint. That's how I look at things.
Exactly.
I would rather want to have a good tenant that's going to take care of my product,
Right.
property, as opposed to tenants that are going to be moving in and out because they can't afford my property, my
Like a
rent.
like a revolving door, and that
Yeah.
usually research has shown that that's usually not a profitable venture, because when people come in, stay short time, they don't care about your property, damage it, leave. Now you got to fix it up for the next one. Next one comes in and do the same thing. So think about that, folks. Think about that. Now
Right.
the next proposition on the list is Proposition 22. This is Crystal's proposition. Crystal has been advocating for this proposition, you know, how it protects workers. So I'm going to read it to you, and you guys think about this. Do your research. Do your research. So, Proposition 22, it's a business proposition. It says it considers an app-based driver to be independent contractor, and it enacts several labor policies related to app-based companies. What that means is companies like Uber, Lyft, and all of that, their workers are supposed to be considered independent contractors, but they're bringing in policies. And Crystal, you talked about this before. I think it's AB
Five.
5, right?
AB 5. Uh-huh.
Right. So you can expand on that a little bit. They need to read up on this and understand the nature of this proposition.
So in 2007, 2008, and I believe that's about the time that Uber and Lyft came in, was a godsend for many people
Right.
because they could not find jobs because we were in the middle of a recession. And so Uber and Lyft actually became their way of finding employment, to get off of unemployment and to be able to make money based upon how much time they had to allocate. They could work it part time and they could work it full time. So a lot of people actually became their full time sideline gig, right? And they were able to pay for whatever their job didn't pay for based upon how much they made. Now they had that income to buy the health insurance, to feed their children, to pay for their kids' education. So now basically what AB5 is doing, and I just think it was a process or a thought that wasn't, the long-term effects were not taken into consideration, because if you first you're taking and so I come from two places, Gilbert. I'm an innovative entrepreneur. I've
Mm-hmm.
created an innovative business concept
Mm-hmm.
that people that solve the problem
Mm-hmm.
create is a solution. You are the solution to solving a problem, and
Right.
that's what being an entrepreneur is about.
That's
So
right.
Lyft and Uber saw a need, because right after the recession, most people didn't have cars. Our public transportation in the state of California sucks big time, and so they saw us. They created a solution. So now you're telling these entrepreneurs, you have to change your business model.
Right.
You have to go hire all of these people who are using their own cars, who are
Right.
paying for their own insurance,
Mm-hmm.
and make them employees. But what makes
Crazy.
them employees?
That's crazy.
Because they're using their own product.
Right.
They're paying for their own expenses and maintenance of their vehicle, and they're applying this to their own freedom of time frame, right? If I want to work tonight, I can. If I don't, I don't. That
Right.
does not make you an employee.
Exactly. And if you look at the state of California's EDD, Employment Development Division, if you look at their requirement as to what an employee is, it's totally against that definition, because their definition is, if you tell that person when to come into work, when to take a break, what to do, then that person is an employee. Now, if the person has their own business license, their own contractor's license, operate their own vehicle, their own tool, they're not an employee. They are not an employee. So this is what the proposition is all about, trying to tell people like those independent participants like yourself that now you're going to become an employee, and that's not right.
Exactly. So that's what this bill is. So they put a lot of money in Uber and Lyft to fight this bill, but not just this one. So if we pass this, this will be a precedence for all gig workers. So
Right,
there's Instacart, and this is independent contractors. A lot of us operate as independent contractors. We have our
right,
own businesses, but we may work for, we may have a contract with someone that says that we're going to do this work for the next 3 years for them and we're going to get paid for that. That doesn't make us a their employee. That
right.
makes us a consultant for that company. So I think
Exactly.
that's really, really important to stress. I mean, for that matter, look at real estate agents. They
Yeah.
have to put their license under a brokerage. They have to pay for their expenses and so forth, but
Hmm.
they can't sell real estate unless they're under a brokerage license. So it's the same relationship. They have their own businesses, but they're independent contractors or independent entrepreneurs working under the umbrella of someone because that's what the law says they have to do.
Right, right. And
So go ahead.
And also, I wanted to say we're at the top of the hour right now, but I wanted us to make sure that we get to all of the propositions. So we're going to extend this time today because we want to go through all the propositions so you guys can be familiar with them. And what we would like you to do is once you research these propositions, and my co-host Crystal just put in the comment section that you need to do your research. I want you guys to make sure you do that. What you need to do is list all the proposition, and then beside it, you put a check mark as to whether you want to support it or not. If you don't want to support it, you put an X, okay? But you need to do your research. So the next proposition, Crystal, that's
Is
going to be
Go ahead.
proposition 23, right? Proposition
Mm-hmm.
20. This is a healthcare proposition, okay? This one requires physicians on site at the dialysis clinic to consent from the state for a clinic that it can be closed at particular time. So again, a lot of people who have kidney problems and they need to have their dialysis done and enhanced, they are opposing this proposition because they don't see it as a benefit for them. They feel like if you don't have dialysis clinics available for them, then what do? You're just going to kill them. It's like COVID. It's like you're going to have a COVID, set up a special COVID by closing these dialysis clinics. So that's what Proposition 23 is. Crystal, you wanna comment on this?
Exactly. And lately there's a lot of people that have there's a lot of people that obviously are on dialysis, but we can't it's already healthcare is already an issue.
Yeah.
So don't make it difficult for individuals to for individuals who are trying to stay alive here. Don't make
Yeah.
that difficult for them. And so coming up with, and it always makes interesting to me that people who have lots of money uh, come up with these just ridiculous ballots and propositions, and none of this ever affects them.
Right. Right. That's
It
true.
always amazes me. Somebody that
Hmm.
like, they're trying to make a name for themselves. And in this day and age, it's a lot of that going on. It's really more political plays than it is humane plays. I
Right.
think, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but I see stuff come out. I remember when I read something about the AB5 and they were saying, but this is so extreme. Why is there not a happy medium? Why is it so extreme? And Governor Newsom's response was, "Well, let's see how it works." You're talking about people's livelihood.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. See, that's a thing. That's a thing that we all need to be educated about and be knowledgeable about these things. Because if not, if we don't read up and become knowledgeable about this, then other people are gonna make decisions for us. Gonna make decisions for us and our family. Is that what you want? I don't think so.
Right.
So
So
I want you guys to do what you need to do on this.
yes, research.
Yes.
Prop 24, and I think this is very important in this digital world that we're living in. New consumer privacy laws. We definitely should have a right to protect our privacy, our data. With everything being on social media and everything being on online, and now everything we're doing our meetings online. Having our privacy protected, and so that people can't just collect your data and use it for their own purposes. That's what happened. Here's a little sidestep, Gilbert. So remember when Trump ran before, and the what was that, Analytica, Cambridge Analytica?
Uh-huh.
So what I heard was that, I just heard this the other day, that that they collected data specifically on Black people,
Wow.
and they created ads that were to deter us from voting.
Wow. That is unbelievable. So
And so,
that's why they were sending out those ads saying election day was November 4th, which was the day after.
yes,
Unbelievable.
and they collected data on us, and they used that data and so in some states like Georgia, there's a social media post that's going around that actually showed that out of these number of states, how Trump won the popular vote was because over 1 million Black people did not vote, and that was the purpose of collecting that data.
Misinformation, huh?
Yes.
Unbelievable. Another aspect of this proposition, Crystal, is the fact that many of these bankers and collection agencies will call people on Sundays, and part of this is that they cannot do that. If you vote on this proposition, you're voting to prevent them from doing stuff like that. They called you up trying to solicit stuff from you on a Sunday.
Right, exactly.
So
Shouldn't even happen after 7 o'clock on a Monday through Friday,
e-
actually. But Sunday,
exactly.
Saturday, Sunday is sacred. No.
Right. So part of this proposition is it's to come up with a rule. They call it the Sunday rule to prevent collection agencies, solicitors, bankers, whomever, from to stop them from calling you on a Sunday using the information that they got from you through all these different sources. So
Mm.
so keep that in mind, folks. That's another business proposition. And the last one, Crystal, Proposition 25. You want to talk about that
Proposition
one?
is yes or no on cash bail. So now this one I don't know a lot about, but it's there was a 2018 law abolishing cash bails in the state of California. I do have a couple of friends that are in the bail industry, and they're very concerned about this one because it kind of diminishes their purpose for being on the planet.
Uh-huh.
But I guess the companies representing this gathered signatures. So what would happen if voters say yes on this measure? It would be giving their approval of the law to end cash bails. Voters who say no will be rejecting the law and affirming the system as it existed for decades.
Right.
So, so that,
I
basically, when you're arrested, you have an opportunity to pay. I guess they take a percentage.
yeah.
You can pay a percentage of the bail that has been posted for to keep you out of jail until your trial. I think that's the way it works. What's
I
your
I
understanding?
I I think this Proposition 25, what they're saying about this is that people who have money, the rich, well-to-do, are usually able to pay cash and bail themselves out when they get in
Mm,
trouble. But the poor and dispossessed, like many of us, we don't
mm.
have the money to bail ourselves out. So we end up staying in jail, incarcerated, or detained for a
Okay.
longer period of time, especially on a weekend, because they like to arrest you on a Friday
Yeah, because
because
you can't get out,
you
right?
can't get out until Monday. And during that time, a lot of people get those come to Jesus moment where they're going, oh, you know what? I'm just going to snitch. or I'm just gonna tell on myself, you know. So that's part of their reason right there is to, detain people for a longer period of time so that they can't really get the benefits of the ones who have cash and can pay their own bail immediately. So the
Okay.
yes, so I think that the proposition is saying that people who don't have money should have the same right and privileges to get bail if they get detained or arrested.
And that goes back to that equality thing, right?
Yep, yep.
Everybody being treated equal. We already know there's a two justice system in America,
Oh
but
yeah,
basically balancing it out. So just because you wealthy or because you have money, but you've created the same heinous or you created a worse crime
yeah.
doesn't give you the permission or give you the ability to get out. And I may have just stolen a cigarette or something of that nature, and they keep me in jail forever because I'm
You,
black.
a typical example of this, Crystal, is I don't remember the lady's name. There's a woman in Atlanta, Georgia, who she she was sending her kid to a certain school, but she sent the kid to a school in a different school district, but
Yes,
that she didn't live in, and she'd been pretending like she lived in that school district until someone snitched on her. So what they did, they arrested her, and guess what? They gave her over 10 years for that, Crystal. 10 years. And look at these Hollywood bogus people who pay all this money to send their kids to USC and others.
exactly.
All they got is 4 months or probation. You see what
Right,
I'm saying?
exactly. So that is a prime example. And
Yeah,
then the other lady, I think it was the same lady. She used her father's address,
yeah,
and in the process of them sending her to jail, her father died from all the stress because they arrested him too for
yeah,
allowing her. But that's his child. She probably
yeah,
lived there at one point in time. But
yeah.
again, yeah, the wealthy go out and put their children and pay money, $250,000, $500,000, and yeah,
Yeah.
I think that last one, Lori McLaughlin, she actually got to choose where she wanted to go to jail,
See,
and she only gonna be
see,
in there for like seconds.
see, that's what I'm talking about, man. That privilege card works so well for those folks, and we don't have access to the privilege card, so we got to
Right.
do hard. We got to do hard labor. You know,
Right. Exactly. So
unbelievable.
I am completely with you on that one. So basically, guys, we'll look at some measures. We do have a guest next week, but we'll look at some measures coming up. But the California election is Tuesday, November 3rd, and the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. They are mailing. You should have gotten your official voters. I don't know if you can see it. Your official voters election book.
Yeah,
And the from what I hear, the uh your most counties you can actually start voting by the 5th if you have your mail-in ballot, if you're doing it by mail-in ballot, and you can also take it to take it in person, or you can drop it off at any polling location. I personally am taking mine to Norwalk. I want to make sure that I get to vote, and I want to make sure I put it in the hands of the registrar's office. So when you want to do that, guys, so as soon as you get your ballot, go do your research and get that baby in the mail. And everybody wants to have voted by the 26th of October. As soon
yeah,
as you get it, do your research so that there will be no problems, and there's plenty of time to count all the votes. So
yeah,
with that, Gilbert, I
yeah.
think we're going to sign off. We want to thank our viewers for tuning in.
Yes.
This, of course, this video is available on Facebook. It's streaming live as well as YouTube. Go over to our YouTube channel and subscribe. We would love to have you subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything.
Doesn't cost you anything. Just click that subscribe bell and give us the support we need to keep this program going.
Exactly. And we want to make sure that you get notification whenever we go live. So we want to thank everyone. Be safe. Keep your mask on. Wash your hands.
Yeah.
Because you
Keep
can
your
see what
mask
happens.
on.
we see what happened when you don't. If you're out in public, avoid crowds and keep yourself safe. And we're going to sign off, and we will see you guys next week.
All right, we're out.
Let's do our ending piece here.
As a small biz pro, so we roll, using procurement, program, and control. As a small biz pro, so we grow, using procurement, program, and control. I'm a businessman, yes, I'm an entrepreneur.